But yeah, anyway, so childcare apparently ludicrously expensive, property apparently ludicrously expensive, interest rates hiked 12 times. We all just need to just pan out a little bit and think about why these problems seem to exist in every major developed Western liberal democracy throughout the world. Because here's the thing, in Australia, New Zealand, in Canada, Germany, we're seeing very, very similar issues. You know, in the Eurozone, we see very little growth. We see high inflation. We see housing crises. In Canada and the US, we see high interest rates, inflation. In Australia and New Zealand, we see astronomical childcare costs and, you know, their own housing crises. And so much of it comes back down to finite resources. Like, you can generate a load of magic money if you just press a few buttons on a thing. Oh, boom, look, there's 5 billion in the UK PLC current account. Go and spend it. Have fun. Like, you can do that if you want. Or you can hike interest rates at the central bank and try to make it more expensive for people and businesses to exist. You know, to try and get a hold of the inflation. But actually, a lot of the inflation that they're battling comes back down to resources getting scarcer, or crops getting burnt out, or droughts impacting produce, which is actually, just to sort of circle back, and, you know, we were talking about Argentina very briefly earlier. One of the reasons that inflation has soared to 150% in Argentina is because of global warming, because they've had such colossal droughts and fires burning out the crops. So it costs much, much more to just go into a shop and then buy your fruit and veg. Or it could just as easily come down to oil wells drying up, or for it getting more expensive to extract oil and gas out of rigs in the sea. And so then that inflation, because it's a finite resource and you pay more for it, and then that cost gets passed on to consumers, because that inflation just starts soaring, then that gets battled by the central banks as though it's some sort of anomaly. You get people in PMQs, people in congressional hearings, people doing podcasts, right-wingers, Tufton Street types, talking about like, well, inflation is a global problem. Inflation is a global phenomenon. Like, it's just this anomaly. And banks have one tool at their disposal to battle this anomalous phenomenon-y inflation that's affected. We don't know where it came from, guys. We'll never talk about where it came from, the root causes. But the reality is that those resources that cause the inflation, they are not going to get more plentiful. It all comes back to climate change. It all comes back to oil.